Since I've started in real estate and have become one of the top 10 agents in the local Greenville market and the #1 agent for Keller Williams in all of North and South Carolina, I've learned a couple things about what buyers want when they are considering a move to Greenville. And I'm not saying that every buyer wants the same thing, but there certainly are common themes. So in this video, we're going to talk about the safest neighborhoods, the different neighborhoods around Greenville, the cost of living in Greenville, and where you're going to see the most return on your money in the next 5 years. Let's do it. As always, my friends, my name is Will Sawyer, your friend in real estate here in the upstate of South Carolina, and it's our goal with this channel that we are your #1 resource for all the things that you need to know about your relocation to the upstate of South Carolina. And if you find this information valuable, do me a favor, subscribe to our channel and shoot me an email at my email below. I would love to hear more about your situation and about your plan to relocate to our area. So first things first, what every buyer wants to know up front is, how's the market? Well, no one wants to catch a fallen knife, and luckily for any buyer in Greenville, I think you're in luck, because here in Greenville, I don't think there's going to be any fallen knife in the next 5 years or 10 years or possibly even 15 years. So far this year in Greenville, we've seen a 4.2% increase in home sales. We've also seen about a 4% increase in pricing. And what's interesting with that is pretty much for every month this year, comparing this month to the month of the previous year, we've seen a significant increase in inventory. Just this past month, it was about a 52% increase in inventory. So what's interesting when you interpret that data is you would think as supply is increasing every month, year over year, you would expect the demand to fall. Closed sales are up and prices are up in our market, so we're not seeing this massive dip in demand. So what's interesting about the Greenville market and about the upstate in general is, for a number of reasons, there's still high demand despite increasing supply. And I think that's a good trend moving forward, that if you invest your money in the Greenville market, I think you're going to see a return on your investment when you go to sell that property in the future. So next up, let's talk about safe neighborhoods in and around Greenville. Now, what everyone is so pleased to hear about Greenville is exactly how safe it is in the suburbs and downtown. Oftentimes you'll find that downtowns are quite unsafe compared to the suburbs, and that's really just not the case with Greenville. When you visit Greenville and when you choose to move here, I bet one of those big deciding factors for you to move here is going to be how clean our city is and how safe our downtown is and the suburbs are on the weekends, at night, and in general. And according to reports, Greenville's crime rate is lower than the national average of other cities. So I always recommend that if that's an important factor to you in your home search, you visit the local sheriff's office website to look that data up on. And I'll mention that specific neighborhoods that are around Greenville that have a great reputation for being safe, according to these sheriff office websites and data reports, are places like Verde, Paris Mountain, Five Forks, Powdersville, and so on and so forth. And if I don't list a town or a suburb, that doesn't mean that it's not safe. Those are just a few that we pulled for the purposes of this video. So what's the #1 thing that a buyer wants when they're buying a house? That's a good deal. So I'll have a lot of cash buyers, and if you're a cash buyer, this is specifically for you, ask me, hey Will, we're paying cash. Can I get a better deal on the house since we're paying cash? Well, my answer to that question always is it depends. So if you're paying cash and you have a home to sell in the state that you're moving from, and the access that you have to your cash is dependent upon you selling your house, then you're not in any better position than, say, a finance buyer, because you still have a contingency in the contract, whereas cash usually removes that contingency altogether, and the seller knows that you got cash in hand ready to buy the house. You don't have to go and get it from a bank. You don't have to wait for a buyer to buy your house to access your money. So the answer to that question is that it depends. So let's next talk about the pros and cons of each different community around Greenville. So I'll have a lot of clients call me and say, hey, Will, we're from Florida. We're used to a flat area. We want some rolling hills. We want to be out in the country. We want to be close to the mountains because we love to hike. Well, if you like to hike, you want access to the mountains, you want a little bit more of a rural feel, but you're still not far from, say, downtown Greenville, it might be good for you to look on the northern rim of the county. So that's going to include Travelers Rest, Taylor's, Greer, maybe even Pickens, and maybe Marietta. This is going to put you about 20 to 30 minutes from downtown Greenville and about 20 and 30 minutes closer to, say, Western North Carolina, Table Rock State Park, Caesar's Head, and then of course Paris Mountain State Park is right there above Greenville and right below Travelers Rest. Now, if you want conveniences at your fingertips, then you're going to need to live on the east side of town in Five Forks and Simpsonville or somewhere like Powdersville. Now, the reason being is if you live in one of those areas, you're only going to be about 10 minutes, maximum 15 minutes from anything that you need on a weekly basis. If you want access to the gym, if you want access to the grocery store, if you want access to schools, you're not going to be far if you're living on the eastern part, southern part, or kind of right there on that western part where Powdersville is. Now, if living an active lifestyle is important to you, I think you should live in either downtown Greenville, on the east side of Greenville, or in the Verde Master Plan community. Now, downtown Greenville obviously has very quick access to the Swamp Rabbit Trail. All of the communities there have sidewalks, and if they don't have sidewalks, they're at least very walkable. The east side of town also has a lot of communities that are very walkable, and you have quick access to a lot of fitness facilities and yoga studios and healthy restaurants. And a community that we have not talked a ton about on the channel is the Verde Master Plan community. This is a multi-phase community right in between Woodruff Road and Verde Boulevard that is going to offer a homeowner very walkable access out of their front door. Several parks to walk through. The Swamp Rabbit Trail is going to come right through there, and very quick access to shopping, to multiple fitness facilities, and downtown Greenville. Now, some considerations about these places that we've recently mentioned is traffic on the east side can get a little congested around morning rush hour and afternoon rush hour. Now, the east side of town is very residential heavy. It's already been developed. There's not a ton of new construction in that part of town. A lot of the roads there are 2 lanes. There's a couple 4-lane road corridors, but for the most part, it's gonna be residential heavy, gonna be traffic heavy at those peak hours of the day. So something to consider if you plan to live on the east side. And of course, we've talked about Woodruff Road and Fairview Road at rush hour on the weekends. You know, we have a lot of out-of-town traffic that comes into shop in these big corridors where a lot of shopping is, and specifically on Woodruff Road where Roper Mountain Road is, all the way to 385 where the shops at Green Ridge are, where Costco is, where you have your big brand name stores. That attracts a ton of people, and that's where traffic gets pretty horrendous on the weekends and can be pretty horrendous at rush hour. So last but not least, let's talk about where you should buy a house if you want to be in the path of progress and build a lot of equity. Like I said in the beginning of the video, no one wants to catch a falling knife, and luckily for you, I don't think there's too many places around Greenville County, Spartanburg County, Anderson County that you're going to experience that over the next 10 years. As more and more industry comes into our area, as we gain a more skilled labor force, I think Greenville has set itself up to be a very attractive place and to become an even more attractive place in the years to come. So as far as being in the path of progress, you know, places like Fountain Inn are particularly interesting right down that 385 corridor. Tesla just announced that it's opening up a regional distribution center there. A few thousand homes just recently got approved last year in Lawrence County to be built, which is kind of right there on the cusp of Fountain Inn. And there's also pockets of downtown that are seeing some development and some growth that I think are interesting if you want to live downtown. And there's other interesting developments in other parts of the suburbs that I think are gonna see a very healthy amount of appreciation over the next 10 years. However, I'm a firm believer that if you buy a house that you can comfortably afford in a nice community, and in a community that is set up to protect the integrity of that community, to ensure that your neighbors aren't trashing their properties and that you can't trash your own property, I think you're going to be just fine in the next 5 to 15 years when you probably go to sell that house. So I hope all of that information was helpful. And if those are some of the things that you've also been considering as you've given thought to moving to Greenville, I would love to chat with you more about your specific situation. So please do me a favor, text me at my cell phone number below or email me at my email below. I would love to chat with you about what your relocation to Greenville could look like in the next 6 days or 6 months. Thanks so much. Well, this video is going to be a about Greenville County, the upstate of South Carolina. Great thing to do and easily in the evening. I'm a local real estate expert here in the area. All the time, we're right behind me is a really cool place called Freight Yard.